Yes, sir. We can start and others may join.
Others may join. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Luthra. Today, you all know that we are celebrating World Cities Day, and then accordingly, this event has been organized by Guru Ramdas School of Planning. In fact, this is a Center for Sustainable Habitat, which has been established in Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, in collaboration with the Kanwar Surjit Singh Institute for Spatial Planning and Environment Research. This institute is based at Panchkula. As we all know that we are coming to an end, this October is known as Urban October. So number of programs have been launched by UN also, and various national and state governments have also organized number of events in October regarding urbanization. So focus in this month has been on urbanization. So we are concluding it with this World Cities Day. So without losing time, I'll introduce the speakers. We have 5 very eminent panelists today. First, we will start with Dr. Kulwant Singh. Then we have Dr. Abdul Razak Muhammad. Then Dr. Krishan Kumar Dhote and Dr. Subrata Chattopadhyay, and lastly Dr. Pratap M. Rawal. So I'll give you a small brief about Dr. Kulwant Singh. First, we'll start with Dr. Kulwant Singh. Dr. Kulwant Singh currently is the president of our institute, that is Kanwar Surjit Singh Institute for Spatial Planning and Environment Research. He is also serving as a CEO of 3R Waste Foundation, an organization working in partnership with Waste Netherlands, and serves on the board of Finnish Society. He is a member of Standing Committee of United Nations Center for Regional Development, that's called UNCRD, located in Japan, for designing the program of a regional 3R and circular economy forum for Asia and Pacific. He is also an advisor to various international organizations, including UN Habitat for Waste-Wise Cities program and Bus World Foundation based in Belgium. Dr. Singh is also the founder and trustee of Indian Heritage Cities Network. Dr. Singh has been the director of Human Settlement Management Institute, New Delhi. He also remained as the chief technical advisor for the Water, Sanitation and Infrastructure branch of UN Habitat, particularly in reference to the urban basic services. In his role as the chief technical advisor, he significantly contributed to policy dialogues in partner countries in Asia and the Pacific, and in the design and implementation of large number of water and sanitation initiatives. Dr. Singh has been a regular visiting faculty at the UNESCO IHE Institute for Water Education, DELFT, and Institute for Housing and Urban Development, that is IHS, at Rotterdam. So welcome, Dr. Kulwant Singh. I now request you to make your presentation. I think the topic has been given to the panelists. They can choose the topic of their own choice. So we have not been intimated about the topics as yet. But anyway, I request now Dr. Kulwant Singh to start his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jaswant Singh ji. We have been celebrating Urban October for the last about 5-6 years. Although UN Habitat has been celebrating World Habitat Day since 1986 onwards. But since cities have now come to play a very major role, therefore, the whole month of October really focuses on urban issues. And we conclude today with a webinar celebrating World Cities Day. And the theme, global theme, is basically better city, better life, acting local to go global. Next, please. I like to particularly mention about the objectives of this World Cities Day. The main idea is that we promote successes of urbanization, sharing some of the best practices, also addressing specific challenges resulting from urbanization. To implement the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal agenda, we are left with only 425 weeks or less than 3,000 days, by towards the, end of 2030. The best way to make our cities most livable and better cities for better life, we really need to ensure that our cities and communities do become sustainable. We really need to find solutions to the challenges our cities are facing, such as health emergencies like the COVID-19 pandemic, which the whole world faced it, ongoing conflicts, growing pollution, traffic jams, climate disasters such as heavy floods we recently experienced in Pakistan, and Indian cities like Bengaluru, which are staring at us in the face. So those are the kind of challenges, and therefore the World Cities Day focuses on that. Let me first also mention that understanding the theme itself of thinking globally and acting locally, there's a lot of importance of the town planning. Urban management and development highly impacts the surrounding environment. The original phrase, think global, act local, that has been attributed to Scots town planner Patrick Geddes, who believed in working with the environment rather than working against the environment. So therefore, think globally, act locally urges people to consider the health of the entire planet. Our planet is actually having a lot of challenges today, and that is why we are very keen that at a global level, we must achieve sustainable development goals and implement the Paris Agreement. And we have to act at our community level, at our cities level locally. Only then we'll be able to achieve the global goals. And to improve urban livability, it requires addressing the complex urban environmental problems through urban environmental strategies, which involves taking stock of the existing urban environmental problems, doing their comparative analysis and prioritization, setting out objectives and targets, and identification of various measures, to achieve that. Next one, please. Let me give a context for the urban development. As you know, the planet today has got 8 billion people. Today, 56% of this 8 billion, that is nearly 4.4 billion inhabitants, they live in cities. This trend is expected to continue, and by 2050, the urban population is expected to be doubling its current size. With more than 80% of global GDP generated in cities, urbanization contributes to sustainable growth through increased productivity and innovations, provided their cities are managed well. However, the speed and scale of urbanization brings challenges such as meeting accelerated demand for affordable housing, viable infrastructure, including sustainable transport systems, basic services, very particularly urban services, including transport and energy, solid waste management, water and sanitation, and jobs, particularly for the nearly 1 billion urban poor out of the 8 billion on this planet who live in informal settlements, jhuggi chompris as we call them, to be near opportunities. Rising conflicts, they contribute to pressure on cities as 50% of forcibly displaced people live in urban areas. Let's also remember that once a city is already built, its physical form and land use patterns, they can be locked in for generations, leading to very unsustainable sprawl. The expansion of urban land consumption outpaces population growth, by as much as 50%, which is expected to add nearly 1.2 million square kilometer of new urban built-up area to the world by 2030. Cities represent 2/3 of global energy consumption and account for more than 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. So the actions to achieve global goals have to be at local level in our cities. Next one, please. There's a role of cities in tackling climate change. It's very, very important because climate change is really staring at us. Cities grow, their exposure to climate and disaster risk increases. Since 1985, about 70,400 square kilometers of newly urbanized land was added in locations with inundation depths of over 0.5 meters during severe floods. This corresponds to about 50 times the area of Greater London. Globally, 1.81 billion people live in high-risk flood zones. We have experienced very recently our most important city like Bangalore that was sinking, and there are a lot of challenges that we face. Exposure is especially high in the densely populated and rapidly urbanizing river plains and coastlines in developing countries, where 89% of world's flood-exposed people live. Cities are also in the front line of combating epidemics. We have experienced that during the COVID-19. In normal times, there may be attributes that cities strive to compete on and excel at the global level, including livability, competitiveness, and sustainability. But on any given day, and especially in a time of crisis, a city must function well for all its citizens. Inclusion thus comes to the forefront in the recent pandemic. Building cities that work, green, resilient, and inclusive, that requires intensive policy coordination and investment choices. National and local governments have an important role to play, friends, to act now, to shape the future of their development, and to create opportunities for all. Next one, please. I'll briefly touch on some of the points for having a strategy to build sustainable cities, because it's very important that we need to promote urbanization process which is green, inclusive, competitive, and resilient, contributing to the Sustainable Development Goal number 11 and implementing new urban agenda, as well as achieving the Paris Declaration Agreement, their objectives. Adopting integrated approaches to transform the fundamental system of cities, focusing on 5 priorities, which are as under. First one is enhancing planning systems and local capacities for cities, strengthen fiscal and financing systems, promoting territorial and spatial development, building climate smart and urban resilience, and of course, very importantly, investment in low-income, marginalized urban communities. It's very important, very particularly. Let me also mention briefly that World Bank established a global program for resilient housing to respond to the urgency for investments in the identification and improvement of poor quality housing and investments in service delivery for at-risk urban populations. There was 5 priorities translated into 6 business lines and the climate change platform. I've just listed them, few of them. City management, governance, and finance is most important. And the focus also has to be on cities and climate change, without which we will really be failing in our actions. Next one, please. I'll now touch upon, how do we build better cities? How do we make India's cities more livable? My focus is on India for a couple of slides. We have urbanized rapidly in the past few decades. Almost 11% of the global urban population lives in Indian cities. Half of the country will be urbanized in the coming years. Of the total population increase, urban population is to contribute to 73% by 2036. There are several challenges which Indian cities are facing. They are plagued by poor planning. Cities remain largely unplanned. Our cities continue to be plagued by an absence of what we call serviced land, traffic congestion, pressure on basic infrastructure, extreme air pollution, urban flooding, water scarcity, and droughts. Consequences of unplanned urbanization impact the environment, the economy, and the most marginalized sections of society. There is therefore urgent need for better urban planning and governance frameworks in our Indian cities if we want to take urgent local action. Next one. There are few barriers. I'll not detail them out, but I have just listed 4 of them in particular. First one is unacknowledged urbanization. As you know, 2011 census identified 7,933 urban settlements, but most of them still continue as census towns because these census towns continue to be governed as rural entities through the panchayat system and are deprived of adequate urban planning. Similarly, there is a poor delegation of responsibilities. 74th Constitutional Amendment passed in 1992, 30 years ago, has not been fully implemented in the country. Urban planning is supposed to be done by the urban local governments, but it is still not done. Then further on, there's a haphazard planning. There are master plans that guide and regulate city development, which are very crucial to urban planning. But 65% of these cities do not have any kind of master plan. Then there's a poor utilization of land. These are several barriers which I have tried to list them out. But let me also come to how do we reform this process of urban planning for better cities and better life? We really need to design healthy cities. Very recently, Niti Aayog had come up with a report, and some of the suggestions which I have listed are based on their report. How do we really improve urban planning in our cities, and so that we are able to make our cities more sustainable? And in that, there is a suggestion for designing 500 healthy cities by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in consultation with the states and union territories. Secondly, they have argued for building expertise in town planning. This country needs 12,000 planners, but we do not have even 1/3 of them. And if the posts are there, then 40% of them are really vacant. There's a lack of citizen participation, which is very, very important. We need to enhance that so that, we are able to have their participation when we really plan the city. We really need to ensure cities' walkability, safety, or air quality, among many other factors when you plan the city. Strengthening local leadership, which means basically elected representatives, local leaders, they need to be made aware of the importance of urban planning. And reviewing outdated plans is equally very, very important. We make plans for 20-year period, but then most of the plans, become outdated very shortly. They need to be really, reviewed timely so that, we are able to make these cities on right path. And lastly, enhancing public-private partnership, which is so significantly important in today's context because all work cannot be done by the governments. They do not have enough finance. They do not have enough management resources. And therefore, we really need to involve public-private partnerships. Cities are the ones which actually have to be managed and governed very well in case we want the actions to be taken at local level to meet our global targets. And that's what we will like to do. Thank you so much. I'll stop at that. And if there'll be any questions, I'll be happy to. Grateful.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kulwant Singh. You have very comprehensively dealt with the subject and given a context to the today's discussion, and the food for thought for the viewers, no, not only for the viewers, but the panelists who are going to speak later on. In fact, I owe my apologies here because in my enthusiasm to start the proceedings, I left out Professor Ashwini Sharma, Ashwini Luthra from. He is the main organizer, so he just wanted to say hello to everybody, in fact, and welcome you all. So I still, I think, not lost much time. So I request Professor Luthra to interject, and then say a few words.
Thank you, sir. Actually, it is not in a way a sort of variation from the proceedings. I think Dr. Kulwant Singh has already set the tone where what kind of interventions we need to look into. The only thing I wanted to share, apart from welcoming all the distinguished speakers and welcoming Dr. Jaswant Singh also for accepting my request to moderate this webinar, and also welcoming all the participants over here. The thing I want to tell you is that for this particular webinar, a thoughtful process was there, and very selectively the minds of India have been presented here. And in fact, they are representing North, South, East, West, and Center. So Dr. Kulwant Singh representing, say, North, Dr. Dhote representing the Center, is from Bhopal. Then Dr. Razak is from Vijayawada, maybe representing southern part. Dr. Subarta is from East, and Dr. Rawal from West. He is from Pune. So that way, the intention was to have a cross-section of ideas across India so that how the cities can be better planned for better living. So this is what I wanted to say as a background of our distinguished speakers. And of course, Dr. Kulwant Singh has set the tone, and I'm very sure that all the speakers are going to speak differently, because that's why no specific topic was mentioned, and it was that let the house be open for ideas and discussion. Once again, I welcome all the distinguished speakers and the participants over here, and now I hand it over to Mr. Jaswant Singh. Please, sir, continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Professor Luthra. In fact, it's not only the representation from all corners of India. In fact, we are having today, very eminent academicians from very reputed urban planning institutes who are, going to speak today. We always, look forward to listening to them. So it's not only the distribution of across India, but it's basically the class and the competence of these panelists, which is very, very important here. Now we have Professor Dr. Abdul Razak Muhammad. Dr. Razak is a professor and head of the Department of SPA at Vijayawada. He did his master's in sociology from University of Madras, master's in town planning, School of Architecture and Planning, Anna University. He has completed his PhD in urban and regional planning from RMIT University, Melbourne, Australia. He is in the research, training, and consultancy work for last 3 decades He has also received a number of awards, including Australia Aid, as well as from the Swiss International Development Agency Award to pursue Executive Masters in E-Governance from Ecole Polytechnique Lausanne, Switzerland. Dr. Razak specialized in the areas such as urban and rural sociology, urban and regional planning, environmental education, tourism planning, disaster management, universal design and accessibility, participatory planning research methodologies, governance and e-governance. He has also developed subjects like transport sociology as well as transport infra for tourism sector. He has worked in various capacities in his vast academic experience, including in Australia, France, Germany, Sri Lanka, and USA, and has a number of publications to his credit. He has authored several research and resource books and supervised number of PhD scholars who have been adequately awarded degrees, and is also an external examiner for PhD thesis for different institutes of urban planning in India. To his credit, he has been invited as visiting professor at University of Tours, University of Lille, and École Belle International Design School in France. He is instrumental for signing MOUs with many international universities and national institutions of repute in the field of urban and regional planning. So before I invite Dr. Razak, I'd just remind all the panelists that a message has already been sent that we need to limit ourselves to 15 minutes, and I thank Dr. Kulwant Singh for exactly finishing his speech in 15 minutes. So I request all the panelists to adhere to the time. And now I request Dr. Abdul Razak Muhammad to make his presentation. Dr. Razak, please.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Jaswant Singh, sir. And I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Asmi Luthra, and also look forward to listen to my academic colleagues who is going to be the other distinguished speakers, Dr. Subhatra, Dr. Kishan, and Dr. Pradap Rawal, sir. And also the Dr. Gulding Saab has already set the tone for this particular topic of today's interest. So straight away to listen to my organizers as well as the moderator, 15 minutes. Okay, we are talking about 15-minute cities. Now I will have 15 minutes presentation. Okay, straight away I'll go to my presentation. Okay, is it visible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Maybe I started very politely. What is the day is important today, and it is not only the end of the October, 31st, but anyway, the context of urban dissemination, seminars, conferences goes on well with many countries and many places. So I take this particular platform to start from the theme where we are concerned about the local, global. It was previously people envisaged the idea of global to local. I don't know. Now the shift is thought from the local to global. Okay, a literary context, and then I will go to the academic way of talking about it to start with. I put it 3L, the language to life and living. What we see that low and high, and there are something behind and something forward. We are aiming high and higher and highest. But we'll see that there is something lower and lowest. When we say better cities and better life, so there is something back is good and something forward to see best. So when we similarly look at better city, there will be good city, then maybe think of better city. Or better life, there may be good life and better life. So at local and global, it's very interesting to see that when I put it in the form of life and living as a quality of life, which we are familiar with. It is the concept of standard of living and the level of living. All of us familiar with standard of living is some standards will tell you that how to accommodate people and give them facilities and everything. But the level of living, what you see from other side, it is the way in which the people living in their own neighborhoods of different nature. So from the topic of why better cities and better life, what I mean, trying to go back and see something is wrong, somewhere it is wrong. So it is not better city and better life. That's why we talk today about making better city and better life. 60 years ago, planning and planned efforts from first master plan Delhi, 1960s, 70 years of collecting data, census 1951 to now big data, which is talking about globally 2022, and 75 years of independence, still it is a nightmare for the households in our urban and rural areas leading a good and decent life. Then we talk about better city and better life. That's what I thought is maybe they start with. So the main focus today under overreaching theme of better city and better life, the aim of the day is to focus the international community's attention, urbanization as a central issue for development, and also to encourage cooperation among countries in meeting opportunities and addressing urban challenges towards sustainable development. So it is a challenge when we think globally and act locally. It is between the government and people. What I perceive from perspective of social point of view urges people to consider the health of the entire planet and to take action in their own communities and cities. That's where we can think globally and locally, whatever earlier we talked about. Before governments began enforcing environmental laws, individuals were coming together to protect habitats and organisms to live within them. But act local and global. How to go global? What is the secret of successful spatial planning strategy? Act local, go global approach is the solution. That's what the world is aiming at. At local, go globally advocate people to consider the health of the entire planet and take action in their own houses, neighborhoods, communities, and cities. Government began enforcing environmental laws. Individuals were coming together to protect the habitat and organisms that live within them. City planning attitude. What I use the word now, we need to look at the attitude of city planning, which is very important today. Across the world, the result of local act and go global is a philosophy. Big cities take initiatives to speak to the people on local level while maintaining go global with local government. City planners to be prepared to put a lot of efforts to find trustworthy local communities who will help our local government with the execution and development plans. So now I think B2B is business to planning. What I mean is a successful implementation of think globally, act locally approach relate to a case of Tesco, a UK multinational retailer, and inform that while every little helps has been a global philosophy adopted by Tesco, the company focused on characteristics and specifications of local areas surrounding a shop. For example, they are trying to see a range of halal meat across the populated by mainly the Muslim population and increasing the range of ethnic food sections across nominated by relevant people. So how locally even a big business thinking about? What is local and global? Although it has several different applications in different areas, in business it is appropriate, the difference between cultures, and give each one the equal amount of importance while sticking on one global code of context all over the world. Companies that embark think global, act local philosophy usually have global standards for products, procedures, or services, but they have different applications and implications of the local level. This philosophy encourages embracing to act solution-oriented approach. If one wants to follow this philosophy, we need to see how certain actions global impacts have. In city planning, it is appropriate that the diverse culture and diverse community needs give each one the equal amount of importance while sticking to one global code of context all over the world. The urban local government that embrace act local, go global, act local application usually, and global standards for planning and design for built environment. The procedures are services, but they have different applications and implications on the local level. This philosophy encourages embracing to act local and act solution oriented. If one wants to follow this philosophy, they need to foresee how certain action globally impact they have. But overall, in general perspective, look at this as a more general perspective. It includes environmental policies of the city government. The steps a city local government takes for environmental concern or global impacts, but the starting points at local. For example, action taken to reducing the carbon footprint is a local action, but reducing carbon footprints become the global concern. It's very make clear that what local and what is global. So the difference between local action and global, it's in terms of health, what we are today talking about after pandemic, also very health consciousness. So earlier people talk about money means time. Time means money, I mean. Now it is the health means money. It's life. So acting locally is call on people to become active participants, no longer passive subjects of what is being done for and by them. Go globally encourage a worldwide vision of what is done, not done, and should be done to alleviate equitably the burden of diseases and health causes of ill health. So it's the influence of urban community. The simple act of creating livable neighborhood launches a ripple effect in a community. Functioning of a local government as a ward level offer entirely a new opportunity to the people for better quality of life. Creation of livable neighborhoods. The local government and people are responsible for the positive and attractive living place environment. This is what we're thinking about the sustainable development goal, aiming for creating livable cities and communities. So it's a responsibility. It is a social responsibility. What is considered the social responsibilities in a broader form? It's the people, it's the government, it's the local government. It's about taking care of people, households and communities live by the local government and operate and function as the entire, the environment envisage what the local government can do. So it is like a global citizens, someone who is aware of and understand the wider world and their place in it. They are the citizens of the world. And it is also the local citizens, or someone who is act upon local places they live, which is the micro-habitat, and understand the connect with the world as an universe, where the local peoples are part of it. So they are the citizens of the local area. They take an active role in the community and work with others and make the planet more peaceful and sustainable, fair. So it's all about globalization. It's a technology and internet-driven society moving from social life to now virtual life. It is also the local government delivery civic services and social amenities for an affordable cost. It's a conflict. It's the way the things work. So now move on to this local and experience from theoretically talking about, but it's some experience what I am thinking about how to act locally, and that can go global. So looking at professional and somewhere, whatever I am writing something, whatever I am attending, what I am contributing to the public media, what are the activities you can generate among the communities and what we can do at home. That's some experience I would like to share with the audience today when we come to think of act local. So it's one of the experience of preparing a development plan for a district with working with the Kerala government and the part of 23 students when I was in Anna University. So it's completely a participatory method, what we can do locally. And that's what I'm trying to highlight upon that. So workshops, and then we are community meetings, and then we had local government initiatives, and then finally we come to something like, consultations and everything we have done in the process of preparing a district development plan for the district, and then trying to see that how it can practically implementable, because of it's a people-oriented plan. And that's finally we come to a kind of consensus about how a plan looks like in terms of it's a people's plan. And similar experience for an urban area where working with a JLL company and working for Tinagar redevelopment project, and then how to make the space more functional, where people really wanted to use it's their space, is a sense of belonging and this attachment. So somewhere I'm just trying to highlight those how a place looks and how it can be made for the people's perspective, how to make formal, informal sector work together, and then creating spaces even under the bridges, how it can be made more user-friendly environment, or even parking in terms of combined public parking areas in the market, and how to reorganize your, the bus stand, which is be more functional when it comes to pedestrians integration, and how it can be done through a consultation process of different levels, which has been introduced in this project. A collective consultation, stakeholders consultation, then again collective consultation. So making people into the process of the planning and implementation as a very thorough way of looking at it. Then that's an experience what I gained from even in conducting road shows. We are doing some exhibitions and asking people, please tell us what you want. This is what this looks like, and this is what going to be. What you say. Normally, when we set up an exhibition, people come and ask, what are you going to sell? We are not going to sell anything, but we are going to ask you what you are going to have in your own streets. So it's also been published as a book, as an article for dissemination, just to highlight into the audience and how it can be made available to others for dissemination. So it's a challenge in this exercise as community engaged in planning is no more voluntary. It's politically demanded, but it should be voluntary. Once again, we have to go back. Developing instruments, how to make participation more engaging people, and then more democratic way of doing. It's not participation; it's a partnership. It is also ownership. It's also how to reach the public. Also outreach programs, and we've done some program in the Bhavani Island in Vijayawada. It's one of the tourist places. How to make it plastic free? It's part of a subject of tourism subject. And the student, about 25 students, went and did one full day workshop and awareness for creating. So you take everything into the local. That's what I just put highlighting these points, and how poster presentation, competition, and interaction with the community in a day. It's not it's a very appealing, but it's a beginning. That's what a little action is important. How a planner envisaged a capital, which was planned when the new capital was planned much earlier ago, after the divide. So it was also disseminated. And so we are given a chance to write articles in the newspaper about the city issues every week. And I also tell you that it's also in my house, how you practice certain small things in green practices at your house and creating little, very bit good neighborhood and good houses and with the nature in your house. It's a small actions which everybody takes. Then there is a need for understanding the local action which can go global also. Right? So maybe I'll come to the end of this presentation, see that what we are trying to see today from the sustainable cities and communities of the Sustainable Development Goal, which is promoting some the aspects of how we can think of something at the local level can be done. Also recently now we pass on to the Day of Habitat Day, and also given a focus on mind the gap, leave no one and no place behind. We look at problems of growing inequality and challenges in cities of human settlements. So finally, to say people, government, and people. Government are facing an ever-growing demand to be a more accountable and socially responsible. The people are becoming more assertive about their rights to be informed and influence government decision-making process. It should not be a vertical relations, but there should be a horizontal relationship is important. So here I conclude my presentation and look at these small few pictures. The lemonade is the price has been increased, and then the person says that it is because of the global headquarters. On the other hand, the world is in everybody's hand. Thank you so much for the organizers for the opportunity given.
Thank you very much, Dr. Razak, for very enlightening discussion. In fact, you have given a true context to the theme of this webinar, that is act local and go global. So how people, how governments, how urban planners, and then how interaction between the climate change issues at the local level and then at the global level. So all these things, you have given a real context and given a theoretical, not only theoretical framework, but you have given us a strategy how to deal with such situations and given practical examples. I see Professor Luthra raising a finger. Do you want to
Sir,
interject? Huh?
yeah, actually, some participants are raising hand. Probably they want to ask something. It's a request that all the questions will be taken in the end. Thank you.
Yes, we will take the questions in the end. No doubt about that. That's why we have limiting the uh, panelists to speak for a limited period, and then we can have a wider discussion for a longer period.
Yes.
That's the basic idea of today's webinar. So definitely all those people who are interested in asking questions or who have some doubts in their minds and who need some clarifications from the panelists, they can note down the name of the panelist also, and we'll ask the questions in the end. So now I request Dr. Subrata Chattopadhyay. Dr. Chattopadhyay is a professor and was professor and head of the Department of Architecture and Regional Planning, and as well as Dean of Alumni Affairs. He is also Avinash Gupta Professor, Avinash Gupta Chair Professor of the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. He is member Board of Governors, SPA New Delhi also. Dr. Subrata has done his BArch from Kolkata, Masters in Regional Planning from SPA New Delhi, Urban and Regional Planning from SPA New Delhi, PhD from IIT Kharagpur. He has also done courses on housing and from University of Lund in Sweden and then Newcastle upon Tyne in UK. He has 36 years of working experience in the field of urban planning and architecture, including teaching, research, consultancy, and administration. His research areas are urban planning, housing and community planning, energy efficient settlement planning, and urban heat island, spatio-temporal study on peri-urban dynamics, urban brownfields. He remained Dean of Alumni Affairs, Head of the Department of Architecture Regional Planning, Chairman Central Library in the University and the IIT Kharagpur. He has, to his credit, number of publications and citations, remained at administrative positions for long time, and he has authored number of books, monograms, and books, etc. He has associations with large number of international universities of repute, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in India. So with the experience, we will be enriched with his knowledge and experience. Now, I request Dr. Subrata to give his presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I hope everybody can hear me loud and clear.
Yeah, please, we do.
I'll try and share my PPT. Is the PPT visible?
No,
Not yet.
no, not yet.
Is it coming?
No.
Not yet.
Okay. Is it now coming?
Yes.
Okay. So I made it full screen. Is the full screen visible?
Yes.
Great. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And when my good friend Luthra said that we will discuss something about better cities and better life, I was very tempted. And I'm looking forward to the discussion that happens later. So about today, I would like to make it very short, given the time. So I'll try to address how to make better cities from two perspectives. One, climate change, and two, inclusion. Because there are multivarious facets of making our cities better. So I thought that let me stick to two. It's surprising that all planners think alike. So the previous two speakers also started with sustainable development goals, though nobody was consulted. So I also definitely have SDG in my mind, and specifically I would talk about a few of them, like 11, which is about sustainable cities, 9, which is about industry innovation, 13, which is on climate action, 1 on poverty alleviation, 12 on responsible consumption patterns, 16 on peace and justice, and 5 on gender equality. So these are some of the SDG goals that I'll touch upon. We start with the climate change aspect, and there the Paris Agreement comes in the forefront. You can see on the right hand side of the screen a word cloud that has been generated using keywords from the Paris Agreement, and there we have words like capacity building supports, some of the causes like hurricanes and floods, some of the legal binding, National Climate Action Plan, reducing green gas emissions, and the like. So here in the SDG goals, we generally talk about the 5 Ps, which is people, prosperity, peace, partnership, and planet. We are to make cities better. We essentially talk about these 5 Ps. We talk about people and end poverty, hunger, all forms of ensure equality. In terms of prosperity, if we do a Gini's coefficient, we see that there is a huge disparity in the amount of wealth and in the hands that wealth is. Whereas this distortion needs to go, it needs to be equitable. So that would bring prosperity. About peace, we talk about peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. And I will talk in detail in the later part. Then partnership. Our previous speakers also emphasized on the partnership aspect, and planet overall. So protect our planet. Our actions need to be such that it actually protects the planet. Moving forward, let me come to the sustainable SDG goal 11, specifically that talks about sustainable cities and communities. And I'll not elaborate much, but I have just a few of the subsections, as you can see on my screen. And I'll talk about the keywords. The 11.1 is talking about adequate, safe, and affordable housing. Now, the government of India is giving a great push in this direction. And I have been very lucky to be very, very closely working with the government, and just concluded meeting at Rajkot, where we had the India Urban Housing Conclave. Previously, I was also juror in the GHTC, which is Global Housing Technology Challenge. So in a nutshell, what the government is doing is pushing towards adequate, safe, and affordable housing in a big way. We have 6 lighthouse projects, which are all of them producing about 1,000 plus dwelling units in modern technologies that are, the cutting edge technology in the world. Okay, 11.3 talks about integrated and sustainable human settlement planning and management. 11.5 talks about reducing the number of deaths and number of people affected by disasters, including water-related disasters. Some of my PhD scholars are working in this area, and they are talking about, man-made flash floods and the anthropogenic activities that lead to these flash floods, and how better city planning can actually address that. 11B talks about integrated policies and plans towards inclusion, and we are in IIT, I'm involved in Inclusive City Framework, ICF, and I'll talk about that in a bit, which is, I think, in a step in the right direction, thought by the government and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. 11.C talks about support least developed countries, and that's at the global level. Next, I come to the point SDG 9 that talks about industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Now, what does that have to do with better cities? I think it has a lot. It has a lot, and I'll tell you why. I've seen, when I was a visiting professor in Sweden, I'd seen that all the leading labs of the industries were actually housed in universities. Our own University of Lund had several such labs. And so the research that was conducted in these universities were tailor-made. There was a felt need, and it was tailor-made. In contrast, I think we are still largely doing research for research's sake, and some of it is very, very good, very, very cutting edge, but the application part is still lacking. It is not up to the mark in which we should aim at. You can see on my right hand side India's improvement in rank in terms of global innovation index. Now these tell us where is our innovation going. We moved from 57th rank to 48th rank. So even then, we have a long way to go from 2018 to 2020. You can see. So what I mean to say is a better industry academia partnership would also take us a long way towards better cities. Next, I talk on climate action, which is SDG 13. And there you can see a few of these stats which say that in terms of disaster preparedness scorecard, India is getting overall 19.2. And some of the better prepared states, including Maharashtra and Gujarat, getting a score of about 27, 27.5, whereas Jharkhand is getting 7.5, which means that we really have to, take it up, pull our strings and make our cities more disaster resilient and be more prepared. So the SDG, linking SDG with that, I talk about 13.1 that talks about strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate related hazards. 13.3 talks about education, awareness raising. This is extremely important, and it starts right from the school level. Awareness raising cannot be done at a mature age. It has to be done from the school going days. And I oftentimes follow that because people should be inculcated these awareness things. Then 13.B talks about promote mechanism for raising capacity, climate change related planning and management. Okay, moving forward. Next is SDG 1 that talks about end of poverty in all forms. Now, how is that related to better cities? Of course, that's very, very heavily related to better cities because, as I said in the beginning, that when we do, distribution of wealth to income, we find that a huge proportion is, reeling under poverty, whereas we have some stinkingly rich people of the world, not of the country. So how to bring in equity, and that will bring a smile in the face of everybody. So end of poverty, here we should deal with that, and it's happening because of unplanned haphazard urbanization, which my previous speakers have also talked about. Man-made hazards, because of lack of awareness, much of the hazards are avoidable. Many of it, like we have worked in the Northeast and we have seen that buildable slope in the Northeast, in the hilly regions, people are flouting, and a slight shake takes the entire thing down like, matchboxes. Then there are these anthropogenic activities that are leading to these flash floods. You can see some of these, news clippings that talk about Bangalore floods, man-made disaster, which means lack of awareness. Next, we come to, some of the other slides. As you can see on the right-hand side, polluted river stream, Mumbai. I mean, nobody can even imagine that what kind of filth has gone into the rivers that I'm showing you from Mumbai and Chennai. And that's the type of solid waste. We do not segregate the solid waste. We do not put the solid waste in the proper place. And this is what is happening. It is going to choke our systems, and it is choking our systems, and it is causing flooding. So anthropogenic activities are the drivers for the impact on the environment. Also, natural hazards, like floods also happen as natural hazards. Landslides do happen as natural hazards. Also, some of our activities like loss of vegetation, disorderly development, unethical conversion of green areas to impervious, existing physical infrastructure, In the cities and condition of water bodies, these are some of the, I have quoted my own article there. These are some of the very, very important issues. Like we have a Ramsar site in Kolkata, the Kolkata wetlands. I was appalled when I heard that a section of the think tank was thinking of building an overbridge over this Ramsar site. I mean, it would have doomed the very, very fragile yet unique ecosystem in the world. In fact, this is something extremely unique. Hopefully that flyover thing won't come, but let's see, only time will tell. We have to be very, very sincere in our efforts to understand environment. Next, I talk about SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. This is also very important and is related very much with our cities, better cities for the future. I quote one instance. What is the C&D waste recycling in our country? Certain reports say that India recycles only 1%. Imagine just 1% of its construction and demolition waste. That's a shame. I mean, Scandinavia is doing about 70 to 80% of recycling of its C&D waste. It's not rocket science. It is possible. It is possible, but we don't care. Much of our C&D waste goes down into, landfill, that too not in a proper way, and lot can be salvaged. Actually, we do not think that it's a viable way of making our cities carbon footprint low, but there is a chance. Then some of the other points of 12.2 talks about sustainable management, efficient use of natural resources. And 12.5 talks about prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. That's exactly what I was referring to when I talked about C&D waste. You can see in this chart that we have, India's overall score has slightly improved by 6 points from 60 to 66 in this period, 2020-21. There are more opportunities. Now let's see, I will not elaborate on the climate responsive vernacular approaches, but I will talk a little bit about the climate responsive modern techniques. Vernacular approaches are extremely important. I'm skipping that because of lack of time. In the modern techniques, I've just indicated that we can actually do energy simulation. Energy performance simulation tools today allow us to consider the building as a single integrated system. It allows us to predict the thermal behavior. It allows us to predict the impact of things like daylight and artificial light. We can model the impact of wind pattern and ventilation. We can also estimate the size, capacity of equipment required, and we can also calculate the effect of various building components. So that tool is now available. It is putting that tool to the right use. Now that is about new buildings, but there are a huge amount of stock which already exists. What about making them energy efficient as well? So that can be done through retrofitting. And I would say the 5 key phases of retrofitting would be phase 1, pre-retrofit survey, phase 2, energy auditing and performance assessment, phase 3, identification of retrofitting options, phase 4, site implementation and commissioning, and phase 5, validation, that's post-occupancy evaluation and verification. This could be a model for, retrofitting phases. I've also given a small chart where you can see how we can do climate resilient retrofitting techniques. And I've done that for roofing, walling, and fenestration. And then the table talks about minimum initial cost, most energy efficient cost, maximum net present value, and minimum life cycle cost. Now, this is extracted from a PhD which I examined, and I thought that it makes sense to give an idea. Like for instance, for the roof. Now, the minimum initial cost to see, because if we have a flat roof, that's the source of maximum heat gain. Just 2 coats of high albedo white or any reflective paint, or just a 10 millimeter bitumen layer can reduce the heat gain by a large percentage. Next, we also have green roof cover, or we can have a cement screed or a puff insulation, or we can have crazy ceramic tiles. So these all can actually reduce the heat gain. Now, next I was talking about inclusivity, and I'll take a little while to talk about this because IIT is doing and I'm involved quite a bit about this inclusivity. So to make our cities better, the cities should be inclusive. And as you can see, the disability and 2030 agenda for sustainable development, the goals and targets are shown there. You can see that the importance of inclusion has been very, very readily highlighted. The SDGs 1, 3, 5, 9, 13, and 16 have targets linked to disability inclusive development through terminologies such as inclusion, for all, accessibility, universal access, and their efforts to support the most vulnerable groups. The SDG reference disability in 7 of their targets across 5 of their goals, which shows that importance of inclusion in our cities is being thought of very seriously. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that is UDHR, is a milestone document in the history of human rights, which was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1948, which sets out fundamental human rights to be universally protected. And now that coverage of SDGs in UDHR, we see that there's a good linkage, good health and well-being, quality education for all, clean water and sanitation, decent work and economic growth, and reduced inequalities. So there is a good amount of link with UDHR and SDG. Now, some recent initiatives in IIT Kharagpur, which I was talking about, we have partnered with the NIUA and we have worked for this inclusive city framework. We have identified 6 important sectors. The 6 sectors have 23 components and 196 measurable indicators. Which are these 6 sectors for inclusive city framework? Well, 1 is housing, physical and social infrastructure. 2 is outdoor environment. 3 is urban mobility and public transport. 4 is IT connectivity, digitization, governance, and public participation. 5 is livelihood. And 6 is recreation and tourism. We have very extensively worked out on the components under each of these 6 sectors and also meticulously worked on measurable indicators. Now, once the urban local bodies come to know, and we are planning to run a series of capacity building for the ULBs, so that they come to know about these sectors, components, and measurable indicators, so that they can prepare charts, report cards for their municipal areas and work towards better cities. This is a graphic which shows sectoral integration, project identification, procurement and tendering, phasing, and feedback mechanism. This is a generalized this thing. We have also worked towards the URD-PFI changes, and the ministry has very kindly agreed to our amendments, because URD-PFI is followed, is consulted, and becomes some kind of a standard when we are doing planning exercises. So major gaps that we identified, which we thought should be plugged in: 1, need for expansion of the term BFE, barrier-free environment. 2, universal design. Number 2, need to consider all the vulnerable groups. And in this, we do not only include differently abled, but we include the aged, the senior citizens, women, and children. So our consideration for vulnerable groups is all that: above 60, men and women, and also the children. Integration of concept of inclusivity at all planning levels like DP, ZDP, LAP, etc. Integration of concept into all steps of process like data collection, survey, planning feedback. If we do not keep that as the backdrop, then we will miss out on the important data. Revision of norms and standards, and spatial reflection of acceptable zones, facilities, and services in land use maps. So we are creating a special legend to show reflection of accessible zones, facilities, and services. Thank you very much for a very patient hearing. Thank you indeed. Sir, you're muted.
Sir, you are muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dhote, for very.
Chattopadhyay, sir.
Sorry, Dr. Subrata Chattopadhyay, for a very detailed, elaborate discussion with respect to our SDGs, how they are relevant, and then you have given us the strategies and each of the SDGs, how implementation can be done by the local governments, by different set of government and the involvement of people. So you've also given us framework for how inclusivity, retrofitting, human rights, then the inclusive city framework. All these things can be taken care of when we are talking about these SDGs, and then your personal, your institution level exercises which we have been carried out in reframing the urban and regional plan formulation and implementation guidelines. Thank you very much, Dr. Chattopadhyay. Very enlightening talk. So now I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Krishan Kumar Dhote. Dr. Dhote is a professor in the Department of Architecture and Planning at Maulana Azad National Institute of Technology, which is called shortly Manit Bhopal. His research and academic interests are in urban renewal and development and sustainable planning. He has edited a book called Inclusive Urbanization, Rethinking Policy, Practice and Research in the Age of Climate Change, which has been published by Routledge, Taylor and Francis Group. He has also contributed chapters in various books. Dr. Dhote is an eminent academician. Number of publications are to his credit. So I invite Dr. Krishan Dhote to give his talk.
Thank you, sir. I hope I am audible.
Yes, please, you are.
And my screen is also visible. Okay. So first, I would like to thank Professor Ashwin Luthra for giving this opportunity, and of course, the organizers of this webinar. It is really a matter of pride to share my views with these eminent persons who are on panel, and also for giving this opportunity to interact with the urban professionals. So as we are talking about the theme, which is think global, act local, or act local and think global, and so on. So this particular think global, act local, as Professor Kulwant Singh also said, that it was this phrase was coined almost 100 years back by Patrick Gates. And yes, we are trying to use it in our context. That is the context of urban planning. Now, when we talk about this particular approach in urban planning, mostly it is inclined towards climate action or protection of environment. And the way Patrick Gates had envisaged this particular concept of think global, act local was in a way that we cannot fix the world. We cannot solve the problem. We cannot solve the universal problem with a universal approach. But definitely there are different contexts. And according to the context, we need to look into what kind of actions we can take depending upon the situation, depending upon the nature, depending upon the geographical condition, and also depending upon the nation. Because this particular approach may vary from person to person, from community to community, and from city to city. Now, when we look at the different challenges, when we talk about the environmental degradation, or when we talk about the pollution, when we talk about the climate action as a result of what we had been doing for so many years in the name of industrialization and urbanization. So the challenges can be broadly divided into three different parts. The first thing which we need to understand and appreciate in this context is that there is a prominent rift between the developed and the developing world. Like the country like India, the country like China, who are the developing worlds, the challenges are very different from the developed worlds, because the wealthy developed countries, they are not experiencing the serious growth in their energy demand, even given their slower, the reason being their slower economic and population growth. They can afford to pay more for cleaner energy options. In contrast, the high level of economic development and population growth in regions like South Asia, China, India, there is a dramatic increase in the need for affordable energy sources that can, and also there are another challenges like social challenges like that of poverty. We don't have that much of educational and health infrastructure. Similarly, when we talk about the climate action is not going to take place in vacuum. So, in an environment where not all participants put their carbon dioxide emissions and eliminate fossil fuel as their first objective, cuts in demand by some can boost the demand elsewhere. Like if you cut in certain areas, then there will be increase in some other areas. So we have to have a holistic approach. So the local action geared towards reduction of carbon dioxide may not bring negligible cumulative effect, but there is a possibility that at that particular instance of time, the citizens in developed countries who are willing to pay more for clean energy may paradoxically be subsidized by fossil fuel use in other countries if lower global demands for those fuels depresses prices. Thirdly, not all environmentally focused initiatives are compatible with climate action goals. Now, there are certain climate actions. For example, if you talk about the reduction in usage of plastic or say polythenes, but then they need to be replaced by some alternative sources. So maybe we can achieve certain things by banning the single-use plastics or by banning the plastic articles, but at the same time there will be some another environmental cost to meet out this particular aspect. So when we talk in terms of taking action at local level, so since there is a huge disparity between the developing and developed nations, and even within the developing nations, there is a disparity among the different sections of communities. So we can think of certain actions which are very community specific, which are very person specific, which are very city specific, which in totality, they may not be solving the problem of climate action or climate change, but up to a certain extent, up to a certain instance, they can take care of the problems which are existing in certain communities or cities. Now, since we already discussed this, that this origin of this phrase is credited to the great town planner Patrick Gates. So when Gates invoked this particular phrase of think global, act local, his idea was, the philosophy was again to use this particular thing into urban planning or city planning. And it talks about that the citizen should preserve their unique qualities, and that unique qualities are the local culture, the identity of that particular place, and of course the economy, because economy is one important aspect. Again, if we talk in Indian context, so if you really look at the informal sector, so we will realize that a huge contribution in our economy is from informal sector, and informal sector may be very city specific, it may be again very community specific. So when we talk about sustainability and different aspects of sustainability, so sustainability is nothing but a developing kind of synergy between the people who are we and the nature, because nature, we had been using nature as our resource, we had been extracting each and everything from our nature, and in return what we are doing is we are polluting our air, water and earth and whatnot. So in order to take care of this particular aspect of think global and act local, so we can say that the climate action or the climate change is a global phenomena, but definitely there can be certain interventions which can act at local level. Now let us see with the help of one example that what kind of interventions can be taken at local level which will solve this problem of climate action, which is at global level. I am going to talk about one small example of stormwater management for resilient and livable cities. We know that because as a result of climate change, nowadays the rains are very intensive, or there are events like that of cloudburst events. There are landslides in certain areas, and most of the cities, like Professor Kulban Singh also talking about the city of Bengaluru, where on one hand, when it rains, there are incidences of urban flooding, and in summers, there is a scarcity of water. So we are living in such conditions. So there are certain principles for designing water infrastructure for livable city. And with the example of this, we will try to find out what local actions can help in mitigating the problems of climate action at a higher level. So when we talk about designing of water infrastructure for any city or any livable city, there are three different principles. One aspect is that there are everyday rain events, particularly in coastal areas, and we design how to take care of that everyday rain events. The second aspect is we design for the events which take place during the rainy days, I mean the rainy season. So for that we have proper drainage management. We design the drainage and how to take away the water from, how to store the water, or how to redirect that particular water in certain water bodies, so as our cities are not facing problem because of that. And third type of approach is when we have not envisaged, that we were not knowing that the intensity of rainwater will change in certain manner, that we will have the events like that of cloudburst events. So when we talk about this particular design, let us talk about stormwater management and the everyday rain management. Now, for this, what we have is traditionally we will collect the water, we will transport the water, and we will try to delay the underground pipe network, and which may be directly connected to the sewer network, or it may be directly channelized into the different natural streams. And at certain in developing nations, we have a practice of using this nature-based solutions to treat this rainwater, so that the water is retained, the groundwater is recharged, and also the quality of water, because whenever there is storm water, it will contain certain contaminants which are because of poor solid waste management, or even in air we have different kind of pollutants which are during rains they are added into the water, and then water is contaminated. So there are certain nature based solution which had been adopted by certain developing nations to take care of this kind of events. Second is the cloudburst event. The cloudburst event we were not prepared for, because we never thought of that there will be certain extreme weathers where there will be the pouring of water will be so high that the city will not be able to contain it, and there is a flood like situation. So the one example which I am going to discuss today is of city of Copenhagen. So in 2011, there was a major cloudburst in Copenhagen, and as a result, they have adopted this cloudburst management plan in year 2012. Now, this plan is basically a combination of solutions that will protect the city and make the city a more attractive place to live. Now, according to the calculations, like once you have these simulation tools, Professor Subrata was also talking about that now we can do these predictions. And with the help of this advanced technology of using the simulation tools, we can envisage that what will be, we can make predictions that what will happen in next, say 20 years or 50 years or even 100 years. So according to the calculations behind this water volume, which the city will receive as a result of cloud burst, no city can have such a capacity to house that much amount of water. Even if you have properly designed green spaces or car parks or certain other areas which we treated as open areas, but they may not have enough capacity to contain this particular water which is precipitated as a result of this cloud burst. Now, the only thing what we can do is to transport this water into harbor. Again, for that, we require some kind of mechanism. So the plan basically talks about there can be different measures like emergency flood channels, then there can be constructed canals, and there can be tunnels which are reserved for storm water. Now, the second issue is if we convert our city into this different type of drains, maybe the channels to carry the flood, then what will happen when there is no rain? Or from where will we bring this much land? Because we all know we all are facing the problem of land scarcity. Most of the problems in our urban areas are, one major reason is of course the land scarcity. We don't have enough land to development. Then what exactly can be done? So one has to select certain suitable areas which can used for the storage of rainwater or this storm water runoff. Now, how to do this? This has to be again done in conjunction with the detailed urban planning. Now, detailed urban planning in various part of the cities, there are certain a city will have defined historic areas which are of historical importance. There are certain areas which are important from cultural and aesthetic point of view. So when we want to create this particular water infrastructure, we cannot convert the city into drains and rainwater pits or ditches to catch this particular. So how it can be integrated with the city's urban planning in a manner that when there is no rain, even then these spaces which are designed for this cloudburst event remains lively, remains active. So there are certain examples which I will be going through to understand how these two things can be integrated so as to get a resilience to climate change. So now we have a city which is resilient to climate change, which is having efficiency, and at the same time it is livable and it provides a sense of place for urban communities. Now, this is one example. Here we can see there is a traditional park and which was updated to take care of this cloudburst event. So as I said that there was severe flooding in year 2011. So this particular Fredericksburg municipality, it decided to use the green urban solution to store rainwater as a part of their climate adaptation plan. Now this is a park, Lindbank Park in this particular municipality in Copenhagen, where they store the rainwater in a low-lying area, which actually is a park. And again, they are using this particular area during the rains to, at least it will reduce the velocity of the rainwater. It will allow the rainwater from the neighboring areas so that the water is accumulated here. So there will be no urban flood-like situation in the neighborhood. So here you can see that there is a ditch, there is a low-lying area which is used otherwise for different purposes, and it's a part of a park. And this ditch will collect water from almost 12,000 square meter area. And this is the surface basin park, and it has also a storage facility which can store 1850 cubic meter of water. So this ditch is planted with apple trees and different kind of fruits. So throughout the year, this particular area remains as a place which acts like a park, which is a recreational area for the nearby people. And in case of events of this rain, it acts as a catchment to collect that particular rain. Again, you can see that there is a square. You can see a public square. So this public square have an underground storage. So it is immediately outside the park. There is a square which is again transformed into a storage which can collect 200 cubic meters of rainwater. And also you can see that it has been given very interesting shape. So throughout the year, this remains open space. This remains a public space for the neighborhood. And at the same time, the water which is there in the channel during the rains try to have some kind of effect on microclimate, and it also reduces the traffic noise. So the people who are coming to this area And you can see this, it's a very interesting Fibonic figure where people are kind of, they relate themselves to this particular open space because they had been using this public space. And at the same time, it solved the problem during the event of rain as well. Similarly, there can be very small interventions like nature-based solution, use of macrophytes for treating water has not a new idea for Indians. We had been doing this for ages, but then there are certain interventions which require to be taken place immediately. So you can see that there are climate streets which absorbs rainwater. So there are certain streets. So here again we can see the another intervention which they had done is to replace this asphalt. This asphalt has been replaced with the tiles, and these tiles allow rainwater to through the surface. Now the rainwater which is on the surface is percolated through these particular tiles, and they are used to recharge the groundwater aquifers. So there is gap in between the tiles that will allow the water below. And also in case of extreme rainfall, this water is retained in the reservoir beneath the surface. So the gravel layer has a pore volume of 30%, which means it can absorb up to 30% water even in the case of extreme rainfall at that point of time. Again, along the road, the water can flow between the different chambers. Then there are certain arrangements which are been made to connect this chamber to the sewerage system in case if the water is the water flow is more, it's beyond its capacity, then it is connected to the sewerage systems where this again can be connected to the main sewerage lines.
Dr. Dhote, if you could, conclude the.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just we have a time constraint, so that's why I'm asking.
Yes, I understand.
Very engrossing.
Okay, so this is one example how we have used this particular water tiles. And then, of course, since Professor Luthra said that I have selected him because he's from Central India. So one example from my own city, that is Bhopal, that at Bhopal, we are using this cow dung cake. We know it's a Hindu ritual for Antim Sanskar. We require a lot of, for the cremation, we require a lot of wood. And then if you take example of Holika Dahan, Holi, which takes place almost in every part of North India. In Bhopal itself, we require at least 48,000 quintals of wood for having this holy festival. So 48,000 quintal means 36,000 trees or 180 acres of forest land. But this particular intervention where the cow dung has been converted into the logs by having a proper compression machine. So we can see there is a significant amount of reduction. The very first thing is that we are not using the wood, the firewood for the purpose of cremation. That is one thing. Second thing, by using this go-cast, which is actually nothing but the cow dung, compressed cow dung as an alternate to wood cremation. So you can see that how the air pollution percentage, there are different parameters of air pollution like PM, SO2 and nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide. So in a whole, air pollution is reduced by 35%. So these are certain actions which are taken at local level and very specific to community, as I said in the starting. So there are different challenges: population, urbanization, the technology and energy demand, and the inequalities which are pertaining in the society, which are to be dealt to achieve sustainability or all the sustainable development goals. So this is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishan Dhote. In fact, you have given us the examples of how locally we can take action. Local communities or local governments can take action and then deal with the extreme events like flooding during cloudburst, etc. And then how energy saving and how pollution can be checked by using our cow dung compressed sticks. So this also minimizes the requirement for using wood as a source for cremation and other activities. It's very fascinating that, this think global and act local issue, although is everybody, has the same theme, but we are getting insights into how differently things can be taken care of. Thank you very much, Dr. Krishan Dote, for such an enlightening talk. Now we have Dr. Pratap M. Rawal. I'll introduce Dr. Rawal. Dr. Rawal is a professor in town planning in the College of Engineering, Pune. He has done his Bachelor in Engineering Civil in 1989 from University of Pune. Did his Masters in Engineering. They call it Master in Engineering in Town and Country Planning in Government College of Engineering, University of Pune. Then did his PhD from Newcastle University, United Kingdom. He is professionally associated with Meteorological Society, Pune. He is also member of Fellow of Institute of Engineers, Fellow of ITPI. He is a life member of the Indian Society of Technical Education. He is life member of Indian Society for Construction Materials and Structures. He has a number of professional engagements also. He is member of the All India Board of Town and Country Planning Education, All India Board of Architecture Education. Then he is advisor for Pune Metropolitan Region Development Authority and Smart City Mission to Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation. So his key expertise is in urban and regional planning, multi-criteria decision making, sustainable urban development, sustainability assessment. So he's done a number of research projects, has also received, worked on, has experience in participating number of national and international seminars, conferences, and he has, to his credit, large number of publications. In fact, I have a 4-page, CV of Dr. Rawal, so it will take me about 20 minutes to read it. So I'll cut short. Very eminent academician. Welcome, Dr. Pratap Rawal. Now I request you to start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I just share my presentation. Can you see my presentation? Hello, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Thank you, organizer, for giving me opportunity to speak.
You can go on full screen, please.
Yeah, and yeah, I made it full screen now.
No,
And
it's
also,
full screen.
Still, it's in an editable.
Dr. Luthra ji also for inviting me in this webinar. Almost all speakers touch upon SDG goals also, and coincidentally, I am also touching some, but in a different context also. And my talk will be, critical evaluation of our systems, and then what we can do also. In this, if you see all these sustainable development themes from 1992 onward, they are converging and diverging. So if we look at 92, where the agenda was set for Agenda 21, which was very comprehensive, and then later on Habitat Agenda, then Millennium Development Goal, then what action taken in Johannesburg Summit, and then again Millennium Development Goal, and now we are working on Sustainable Development Goals, and then Climate Action Plan. So these themes itself shows that concern towards the environment, as well as the urban areas, how to address the environment into urban areas also. So going further, for this World City Day, the themes which I could gather it from 2014 onward, they are also somewhere converging and diverging. So when you look at 2014 theme was on urban transformation, and 15 was on, again, design to live together. Later on, again, it is inclusivity, shared development, innovative governance, open cities. 18, it is about building sustainable and resilient cities. 19, it is again the changing the world innovations, better life for future generation. Here it is again, it is talking about a better life. 2020 theme was valuing our communities and cities. 21 theme was, of course, adaptation, cities for climate resilience. And then current theme for 2022 is act local and go. In fact, the tone was set up by, as many speakers told, that the Patrick Giddies talked about all, act local, think global, or think global, act local. The same thing is replicated in all UN habitat programs also. And 1973 onward, if you see the other days, like the World Environment Day, it also promoting the environmental awareness and importance of taking prompt action to protect and preserve the earth. So in 2005, it was the green city as a theme. And then if you look at the plan for the planet from 1986 onwards, you will find that the UN Habitat, World Habitat Day was, is celebrated, and every year it is celebrated. A specific topic, if you look at the past topic, they are all about talking about the urban future, then better city, better life in 2009, and 2010 again cities and climate change in 2011. So it all they call for cities around the world to elevate the pressure and ecosystem and to ensure that the quality and security of our living environment. So all these themes are emphasizing about the cities and cities life, and the same is again repeated in these years also. So let us see how other part of the world is responding to all these themes. So we know that world is globalizing, and also world is urbanizing. So global population.
Dr. Rahul, your slides are not changing because you have not gone on the presentation mode.
Yeah, I am in presentation mode. I can see.
But it's not on the
Slides are not moving.
Okay, I'll just make it in a normal mode. Okay, can you see now?
Now it's okay.
Yeah.
I think you
Okay.
can stop sharing
You
and
can make it, presentation mode. Then I think you can't see it. That's the problem with the Google. If you can read it, I will present with this one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you look at the global population currently living in urban area, as many reports shows that the world is urbanizing, and how does other part of the world is responding. So it's another important report, like European Union report about the future of the city, opportunity, challenges, and the way forward. So they exclusively addressing the European Union urban problem. And moreover, they are similar to other countries also, except barring few, like aging. So environmental impact, of course, we know that urban area is causing a large environmental impact also. Aging is not the problem for Asian countries, but it is for the more like European countries. Health is an issue now. We know that we all facing the health issues also. Maybe of reason are different, but in urban area we are facing more. Housing is continuously we have to address, and this becomes a challenge for us. And in fact, for Asian country and to the India, housing is a bigger challenge. Well, the definition itself of town planning itself is that it's a social engineering, but still, the problem of social segregation we are facing, and the country's Western world is also facing. So we, through the planning, we try to bridge this gap also. And they are also talking about the new form of governance, which is required to address this massive urbanization. And we also know that we have to address through different governance system also. And that is why all these amendments and the new form of governance and digital governance all is coming up now. Another problem is about the mobility. So mobility is the issue which we also are facing. and the Western world is also facing. So the challenges are almost common, but look at that the landscape of Indian cities. So if you look at this, this cartoon like a picture appeared long back in times of India, and I just tried to narrate this urban maze, through writing like urban landscape. Indian urban landscape could be defined as a bizarre ad hoc juxtaposition of suburbs, gaons, hills, slums, and shanty areas, clutters of Guntevari structure. So Guntevari word is very famous in Maharashtra for legalizing the illegal structure. So which have turned these all, habitat that is densely populated, squalid habitat and surrounded by glittering buildings and gated community. So this is what is our landscape is seen, and we want to make it better, better city and better life. So going back to the challenges, we know that cities are expanding on a massive scale, and the one of the example is the Pune city, where I live. So from 5 square kilometer, it has become a 600 square kilometer, and the region has become 6,000 square kilometers. So it's it's very massive scale. The expansions is happening, and it is also similar to other cities also across the other state also. And we hardly look into the ecological footprint, of these areas. If you try to calculate the ecological footprint, you will find that they are very, very high. And these urban sprawl, which we call it in planning language, is that it's a chaotic. It's a maze of low, medium, densely housing, spreading all along the, terrain. So how to improve the quality of life within, capacity of these, cities? So this, on one side, we are exhausting the capacity. On other side, we are also striving to improve upon the quality of life. So the mounting challenges are many, and we know that in case of Indian cities, these are very dominant, issues. They are all interrelated. Like we are all facing everywhere. That is increasing level of traffic, as we know that mobility has become an issue everywhere. In my city also, the mobility is issue. Recently, they came up how many vehicles are there in Diwali times. There is a lot of registration, and the figure came out is 43 lakhs vehicles are there on the road, and the Pune's population is 41 lakhs. So almost 1 to 1, 1 person to 1 vehicle is there, either it is 2-wheeler or 4-wheeler. And of course, which leads to air pollution, and we know that the pollution is everywhere, even in the Delhi also facing. Then the other part is that the poverty, and we know that the large section cannot afford, so they remain below ladder, and they are poor. And apart from that, this environment problem of emission, noise, neglected built environment. So all these, whether it is really suit into the better city or better life, theme is a question. So improper land use, that is what is we planner are failing. Lack of open spaces, we are not giving due respect to the recreation. Generation of large quantities of waste and wastewater. Of course, my previous speaker also talked about all. And then high density development and the urban planning. Now, this is what is the motto of for last 10-15 years is happening. We are making denser cities all over the India. So if we want to change it, what we can do? So when I critically analyze what is happening actually in case of our built environment, there are many factors. Like we say that we are preparing master plan, development plan, but we are failing it. We are failing because the land use plans are faulty, and the framework which give the third dimension, that is development control regulations, they are also not in line with what is to be taken as a landscape or design terms and all. So it's all the recent development in case of Maharashtra itself, unified DCPR, which actually encouraging more, tenement on a plot. Then also, the mechanism of, TDR, like transfer of development right, and other concession for, FSI to be put up on the single plot. They are, mind-boggling that the plot of small, 6,000 square meter, have a 11-story building, small, a space for recreation and all. So this is who is responsible. We are making all these, the rules and regulation without considering all this livability aspect. And another thing which is happening, the phenomena which is very common actually in other states, I don't know, but in Maharashtra, there are many spatial planning authorities are coming up in metropolitan area. And within the city, Pune city, there are 2-3 authorities working. How does they will integrate? For example, metro, Maha Metro is a special planning authority along the metro line, 500 meter. So they will look into the only 500 meter area, with their own. Want to have a higher FSI, we have to look into the all other aspects also. So this is what happening. Whether by doing this, whether we are really creating a better city or better life is a question mark. Similarly, these are the challenges that we also as a planner facing. That is, we have to look into the service demand of this rapid increasing urbanization. And we are failing here because there is lack of physical planning and design. We don't do a micro level planning yet, even though it is said that the local area plan will look or take care of all these things, but it is not in the statutory form. Still, it is in the theory only. Increased challenges, setting the facility. Now, whenever a new plan is to be prepared, there is a challenge where you will put up all these, because you are just consuming all the land for, a development. So denser urban area, to plan a denser urban area is, now a challenge. Increased risk of structure also. And we know that earlier speaker also spoke about the extreme event of water and all. So this is going to be a, future that whenever there is extreme because of the climate change, we are going to face either, flood or extreme heat. So all these are the issue. And I just wanted to quote here that, basic town planning definition is about, this is from American Planning Association, which talks about, planning works to improve individual and the community well-being, creating more convenient, equitable, healthy, efficient, and attractive places for the present and the future generation. So whether we are really creating more convenient or equitable or healthy or efficient, places in the city is to be retrospection. So if you look at the characteristics of the better city, you will find that it should have a vitality and the variety. It should have a green component, and it should have also a traffic transportation component address, and also form of new development and the public spaces. So in case of vitality and the variety, one must have active nodes, streets, land uses, textures, grain, and if you look at traffic and transportation, you must have a public access, non-polluting transport, pedestrian accessibility, permeability, pedestrian experience, all talks within the framework of sustainability. And the form of new development, which is getting evolved, must be sympathetic with the topography, compatible with character of the area. All this is even though we say it's a theory, but we need to relook into the application. So where and which instrument will help? Of course, the technologies are available. Earlier speaker also shown that the simulation can be done, but we are lacking. So we are lacking because we are not looking into all these aspects. So there are no sufficient linkage between planning and designing. Still we are working in silos. So the planning is different and designing is different. then our planning is ineffective because it is bureaucratic planning procedures and also lack of adequate institutional capacity also. Still, we are, all the programs, central government programs is about capacity buildings and all still going on. And they were there in even last 15 years ago also. So whatever, changes, ad hoc changes of older plan, responsible to the development pressure is happening currently. And is sometime I feel that the planning is hijacked by bureaucracy also. So livability is out of sight, out of mind. Although it is a important outcome of planning, planner at least bother about that what built environment is to be created because of the plan. So we must look into that, what kind of built environment will be created when we are talking about the multi-story building, we are talking about other commercial development, more FSI, all these things one must bring into the framework of livability. So we are making actually a city denser from the Pune perspective or even Mumbai perspective. And then we are trying to integrate the traffic plan. Once we make it, then we plan for traffic. But in a way, we can start early also, and traffic and land use integration at earlier stage will help to create a better city. So these are the planning discourses. All we know. I am just reiterating that our plans are that is urban area only fulfill the real estate development. And this is also, you can see the Gurugram or Delhi or any other places also. And the current decision-making process itself is, bureaucrats, politicians, government officer, easier, either unable to grasp the relevance of spatial planning beyond zoning and land use. So they only know two things, but there are so many things to be considered in the planning process. And or they are firmly believing that the era of liberation, there is no need for follow the planning practices. So we teach to the student, but in practice, don't need to follow. So land use transportation has a close relationship. We know that, and which is ignored in current planning process, and that is causing a problem or the mess of traffic in cities also. Urban and regional. Well, regional. I'm talking even though it is urban, cannot no longer be topic of generalist. It is not generalist. Both the topic. It requires involvement of the domain specialist, and we are not doing so. The plan of 6,000 square kilometer of Pune metropolitan region is done by only 3 planners, which is really pity that they don't follow the procedure which is required, and they just go by bureaucratic way also. Just to show that what can be done, good planning exercises, some of the good example from the abroad also to be think of. One of the development in Sweden about the Western Harbor, which they decided to develop this area with the motto of 50% less energy use. So they wanted to reduce the energy use and reduce the environmental impact. So they were focusing on so many
Dr. Rawal, we need to conclude because we are approaching 5.
I have only 2 slides left. I'll just finish up. So this is a good example where you can create a better city and better life by integrating also all these aspects, and similarly also bringing back the environment also. So environmental sustainability is how does it is achieved is these are some of the examples I just wanted to show you. So in a conclusion, what I would say is that we need have a common vision for seeking a solution to better cities. So we must have and this vision has to be developed at local level. We don't need to leapfrog the Western ideas also as it is, but we can evolve our own context-specific ideas also. And local ideas of you can take it to global level, but it helps to exchange the best practices also. And another important thing which also Professor Subrata also talked about systematic integration of range of research-informed judgment, expertise from the different discipline, and experience-based knowledge is often best way forward. So that we have to integrate all these, academic here. And last is that the strategic planning. So we need to, solve this city maze through strategic planning, which is really promising tool to achieve a desired outcome, and it is more participatory. Thank you, sir. I just finished.
Thank you very much, Professor Rawal. You have listed out, in very detailed manner the challenges which we are facing for creating better life cities. These challenges relating to environmental impact, aging, health, housing, social segregation, changes in the governance forms, issues relating to mobility. In Indian context, we have a chaotic urban sprawl. So you have listed them in great detail and also pointed out the bottlenecks which are there, which hamper our, our planning processes, and then the inability of planners to come take up the challenge because of certain bureaucratic hassle. So thank you very much. It was a very detailed presentation and very nicely presented. Now, we have some time for discussion, maybe 5-10 minutes. If anybody wants to ask question from the audience, they can ask questions and point out the question to a particular panelist. If not, then there's one statement here in the chat box, which is there are evident cases where departments too lack coordination, and that usually results into difficulties on how cities function. How can such issues be addressed to improve the functionality of cities? I think this issue was very detailed, in a detailed manner, dealt by Professor Rawal also, and Professor Subrata also, and Professor Razak also, I think. But still, if any panelist wants to make any observation on this comment. Dr. Razak, you can take it.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm not, competent to say that the lack of coordination among different departments in terms of implementing planning is a major, setback. So that's what I understand, that the lack of coordination is not a new phenomenon. This has been discussed and debated since ages. But I think there is a need for relook at this coordination. It's not only between agencies and department, but also from the people as well as the departments, because now the people are coming with a lot of demand. And like, for example, in Chennai, different cities, I have seen residents' welfare associations are become very stronger, and they are becoming like a new social movements in India. And in many cities, they are coming forward with a collective, community building efforts to influence the local government to get things done. So it is departments of electricity or water supply or education or transportation. This community is now coming forward and approaching the government, and they're trying to see that how it can be made from grassroots level, then always blaming that government is not coordination. But I think it's another way to look at, from my experience, and it works well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Razak Bowman, for making your intervention. If any other question from the audience, from the participants here, they can unmute themselves and then ask the question on screen also. No issue with that.
In fact, many participants have appreciated the presentations, and
that's all right, but we are asking for questions now.
yeah, definitely a new food for thought is also there, and maybe in case there are no questions, then we can wind up.
Dr. Kulwant Singh, would you like to make some observation here?
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
you are, please. You are.
No, I would say that it was excellent presentations giving different perspectives. Going back, I think what Mr. Pratap Rawal, Dr. Professor Pratap Rawal said, sharing Pune's experiences, and the real good challenges of coordination among multiple organizations, we really need to think about it. The real problem is that we have not implemented the 74th Constitutional Amendment empowering our local governments. The function of planning was supposed to be with the urban local body, that is the municipal corporations or municipal councils, and all other related organizations should have been also, working as part of that. So the question of coordination, when it comes to, it's mainly because of that. At the same time, there were very interesting examples. I was enjoying what Dr. Krishnan Dote mentioned about, the example of, the cloudburst example. I think that was a wonderful example that you gave and the kind of solution which they found. But, many of these situations, many of these examples really need to be customized to our situations. This is what I really feel. Because, for example, we had several cloudbursts in Uttarakhand, last 2-3 years, every time it's happening. It was not a cloudburst in Bangalore. Bangalore situation is very different. No doubt you had 3 days, continuous rain, but the city could not really manage it. It was mainly because of our, I would say, last 40-50 years of failures of dealing with the local water bodies the way we have really done it, like that. But I think it was wonderful. I also must say that what Dr. Chattopadhyay, Professor Chattopadhyay presented in his own way, the various sustainable development goals and how they have to really be, how they are really being implemented at a local level and how we can really address those. I think each of the presentation, including by Professor Abdul Razak, basically, they were really wonderful. I do hope that, these presentations will be available and the presentation will be available for I would say that. Many of these are wonderful examples to be, to be used as practices for application purpose. That's what I think.
Thank you, sir. I would request the panelists to share the presentations with Dr. Luthra so that these are available with the GNDU library as well as the National Library. It was a fascinating session. In fact, the four-word theme, was presented in so beautifully in different manners by all the participants, and I'm sure none of them consulted with each other that they are going to present this. So it was really, really fascinating. Now I think, since no more questions are there, and we are running out of time also, we have crossed the time limits of 5 o'clock. So I would now request Professor Luthra to say a word of thanks to the participant. Dr. Professor Luthra, please.
Thank you, Jaswant Singh ji. Before I propose vote of thanks, Dr. Pratap Rawal has raised his hand. May I ask him to say?
Yeah, I just take this opportunity to announce that we are arranging an international conference next year on 6th and 7th of April on urban transformation, where the themes are climate adaptation of all these urban area. And of course, I will share it, all the brochures on UTT also and by mail also. Please do participate in this conference.
I also have a small announcement to make.
This I also wanted to say that
Yes,
ISPER has already taken a lead, and there is an international conference on new
we are
urban agenda.
organizing international conference on 16th and 17th of December.
Yes.
It's on the new urban agenda, reorienting our strategies for sustainable and livable cities and communities. So on that topic, we are. I'll share the flyer and the details with everybody. I have put it on the urban think tank also. If
Yes.
some of you have seen that. I think most of you are part of that that group. So I'll reshare these and request you to not only participate, but since keeping in view your stature and your experience, your knowledge, I would request you to contribute a paper or presentation there for that webinar. Thank you very much. Now I request Professor Luthra.
Thank you, sir. I think this was a wonderful session. I won't call it long because while sitting for about 2.25 hours now, personally I enjoyed a lot of things and experienced new avenues also. And I know because out of my experience, all of you are wonderful speakers and wonderful researchers as well. And your rich experience has enriched the present day teachers as well, because I see in this group many assistant professors are there, and your experience and your presentations must have given a new food for thought to all of them, along with me also, because I always feel that in every presentation, in every seminar, you get to know something new. And it is in that light, of course, many evidences, many new things were there for me as well. And that was the whole purpose of organizing this webinar. And precisely, I would say that why intentionally any topic was not given. Though there was overlap of sustainable development goals, and if I say that had there been a specific topic, even then SDGs would have come into picture. So all of them have made different presentations, I would say. And those different presentations, they are so wonderful. And I know some of my PhD scholars were part of this webinar, and some students are also there. And this definitely will give an idea of selecting a thesis which they are having in the next semester. And that way, this is an input towards the new generation of professionals, of urban planners. And it is where the intent which was there is complete. And for this, I would share with you that the person behind this Urban October of Center for Sustainable Habitat is sitting with us, Dr. Kulwant Singh. In fact, he told me that there is something like Urban October. So we had we have been organizing webinars since last 3 years now, and we are organizing World Habitat Day and World Cities Day very regularly. And the key person behind this idea and promotion of this is Dr. Kulwant Singh. I thank Dr. Kulwant Singh from the core of my heart for putting me into this line, because I happen to be the coordinator of Center for Sustainable Habitat, which is established under RUSA Scheme 2 of Government of India. And we have been enriching ourselves, and we have done some research, multidisciplinary research, in fact. And it is in that light, organizing these webinars and conferences are giving us also new avenues, new ideas to start new research. For this, I would thank, in the first place, Mr. Jaswant Singh, Secretary General, Kanwar Surjit Singh Institute for Spatial Planning and Environmental Research. Sir, I think off is replaced by for now. So, because this was his motivation also, because a few days ago he was with us, and unfortunately, Mr. Kanwar Surjit Singh is not with us. We lost him during last COVID phase, and it is a big loss to the planning fraternity, I would say. And it is where, uh, in the name of Kanwar Surjit Singh, a gold medal has been instituted in Guru Nanak Dev University for the transport planner at the master's level, topper of the master transport planning course. At the same time, we have a MOU with the ISPER, and whenever any such event is organized, then we try to collaborate, and that collaboration gives us this kind of platform where new ideas are there, and new avenues or new collaborations emerge. I thank Mr. Kanwar Surjit Singh. I thank all the distinguished speakers who actually accepted my request. In fact, I would say that I contacted only 5 of you. I did not contact even a single other person. And thanks for calling me friend, because all of you, like Dr. Rawal, Dr. Subarta, Dr. Dote also, and we have been meeting quite often. And for Dr. Razak, sir, you are friendly, but probably I will say you are my guru, because when I was pursuing my PhD in SPA Delhi, he was there then, and he often used to ask me about the progress of my PhD. Unfortunately, I could not complete it from there, but still, his pursuance and his encouragement has always paid me. And for the information of all, he happened to be my PhD juror also. Thank you very much, sir, for your contribution to this webinar and in my life as well. I thank Dr. Subarta in particular, because after a long time I'm listening him. Because listening him is always a feast. And in fact, he always contributes in a different manner, and rightly said by Dr. Kulwant Singh that he has presented the SDGs in a different manner, in his own manner rather. And his inclusivity approach, having say indicators, parameters, and then more than 100, I think 193 variables, and I would love to look into those, so that inclusive city approach, how many of them are applicable to Amritsar or the cities of Punjab or northern region. I would like to appraise, so that again fruitful things can come out, and maybe we can contribute the other way around. Of course, the examples of Dr. Dote in particular, I was amazed with that cow dung use, because that way you are using, you are saving wood and trees, and then a lot of forest land. And of course, the other examples, like how the storm water can be conserved and so on and so forth. Those examples are really fruitful, because at the campus level, at the university level, we are experiencing some of these. We are trying to conserve the water, and we are trying to harvest the water. But of course, few more things can be done. Thank you very much, Dr. Dote, as well. And Dr. Pratap Rawal, he is always a friend, and he is always so much cooperative, that whenever I request him for anything, he comes forward and always accept. And of course, I had a message that he is having electricity glitch, and maybe during the presentation, the association and the God was, very graceful that electricity failure was not there, and that way he presented very nicely. I thank Dr. Rawal as well. I thank all the participants of this webinar, and I can tell you that right now the number is 39, but we touched something like 82 at one point of time. Though at the same time, YouTube channel is on. I may tell you that Center for Sustainable Habitat is having its own YouTube channel, and all the videos, all the webinar videos, they are available on that channel. Of course, you were asking about the presentations. All the presentations that way go on the channel itself. So apart from that, we can always share the presentations, because all the speakers have already shared their PPTs with me. And if anybody requires, then on request, we can always share, because I think YouTube is there and all the presentations are there. Then whomsoever is more interested, then he can watch those videos. If we see a movie and a song is there, we think that the hero is singing or heroine is singing, but in fact there is a background singer. So for this webinar also, there is a technical team of this Center for Sustainable Habitat. Right now, 5 of them are sitting in the center, and they are doing all the technical things for success of this webinar. I thank from the core of my heart Mr. Arvind and his team for maintaining the technical glitches away, and not the least, I thank my worthy Vice Chancellor for allowing us, for permitting us to hold this webinar, because in the university setup, the patronage of worthy Vice Chancellor is always welcome, and that way I'm thankful to my worthy Vice Chancellor. And once again, from the core of my heart, I thank one and all for arranging, for presenting, and for attending this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Luthra. There's one comment from Ms. Anjali Sharma. I hope you will appropriately answer this in the chat box. So we now take